Manufacturing for Relic Solutions, and also Letitia Pan, Principal of Pre-Field Sales, on talking about IBP. With all the challenges and all the variations we have in running the supply chain planning nowadays, it's very important to have one integrated view of the business. It can be on a very strategic level, it can be on a very tactical or operational level. But it's very important that we have a connected view. All the organizations are talking to each other. They are working in a sync rather than in silos. And we'll spend a good amount of time today to talk about that topic. Also, what relics bring in that capability on the table. And also we'll have a little bit of a demo to give a bit of a context, how that looks in real life. And after that, we'll move to a little bit of a Q&A, a roundtable discussion, to also understand view and experience of the audience here. We have very good representation here from very different companies. Specifically, a lot of protein companies here in the room today. We'll also love to hear your experience, what's your journey has been so far, because running businesses have become very difficult. And to start the discussion, let me invite Nathan on the stage.
Thank you. With this volume of voice, am I audible? Oh, there's a microphone. Perfect. Test. Before I start, I just wanted to check if there's anyone from Charun Pokpan in this room. Perfect. I can be as transparent as possible. Okay, so yeah, my boss ensured that try not to reveal too much to Charun Pokpan, but better goes okay. Anyways, so nice to meet you. So my name is Nathan. Today I'll be speaking a little bit about how we have implemented Relax. However, in Java, I think I briefly touched this during the panel presentation, is that we're going full-on technology deployment. So we have just recently rolled out our warehouse management system, which we built in-house. We have transport management system, which we use Locus and Statics. So those two are exploring. Obviously, Relax, which is our biggest and most expensive project. So we're going to go live very soon. So hopefully it's going to materialize very well. So brief introduction about myself. I'm the Deputy Head of Downstream Supply Chain Management. Downstream is a newly formed division within Java. There's a slide on this later as well. We used to have different sub-business units that operate very independently from one another, and our effort is to consolidate them as downstream, as Java Food Indonesia is what we're branding. I've only been in Java for not so long, I think it's about a couple of years. Before that, I used to slave away in McKinsey as a consultant for a couple of years as well. But my longest time was in Shell, and in Shell I was also in supply chain planning, but in lubricants. So lubricants is a lot easier than poultry, a lot easier than protein because it's a stable FMCG, and poultry is definitely one of the more challenging business out there to help tackle. So to give you a bit of an overview on Java, I briefly mentioned this, that we are a very integrated business model, right? We have our upstream division, which is basically the animal feed. So all this, poultry, aquaculture, beef or cattle, we have every one of this. For them, we have feed, we have breeding, we have commercial farm, we have processing and consumer products for each of these. Poultry is obviously our biggest business units. There's another slide that shows our revenue breakdown for each of these sub-business units. But where I focus is actually down here in Java Food, which is the newly formed organization. So Good and So Nice is our further processing arm. Seafood Lovers is a part of what we call STP, which is our aquaculture. We have mostly tilapia, unagi eels. There's a few more that I can't remember. And also Toksen is part of our beef business units. So we have both dry aged beef, we have Meltic beef, so that's artificial marbling beef. So this is where we are as Java. Today, I think we're focusing mainly on downstream because that's my competence. So if there's questions about upstream, I might not be able to answer. This is our breakdown. So if we take a look at this is from our latest investor presentation. So poultry feed is our core business. Right? 39% of our revenues are from poultry feed, 9% from poultry breeding, 32% from farming, and where I am, which is here, poultry processing and consumer products, is actually still only 10% of the total revenue model. So this is where we are. We are the second largest chicken company in Indonesia, second after Charu Pokpan. And hopefully, downstream, we're trying to make it larger and larger, and hence why technology will play a big part in terms of this expansion. Any questions so far before I go to my next content? Okay, so this is where I mentioned a little bit that poultry value chain, since we're vertically integrated, is very interdependent, right? Between the feed all the way down to the further processing side. We have so many questions that right now in Jeppa, it's operated mainly in silo. So what downstream does is not really visible to what upstream does. What hatchery does not have any relationship with further processing. But actually, there's a lot of questions that could actually synergize between all these different business units, right? So one very important one is with the regard of taking position. So like the concept of buying stocks low and selling them high. So taking position is a huge profitability leverage for Jeppa. When we predict that live bird prices are going to go down, should I sell more externally our chickens through our boiler farm? Or should we process it in our primary processing, sell it as primary processed poultry, like the breasts, the legs, the cut-ups, or we give it to further processing in order for them to value add further on top of that poultry, raw poultry, right? So when you take a look at this, it creates so much permutation on what could be driven between one business unit's decision and another key business unit's decision. So it's very complex. Whatever we do in one will have a knock-on effect on the other business units as well. So that's why we decided to pilot this so-called integrated supply chain planning, which we pilot with our slaughterhouses. So slaughterhouses is actually here in the primary processing bit. So we're piloting our slaughterhouses in order to answer a few key questions. So I'll get to this one by one. So in terms of supply chain, we have 12 slaughterhouses in Indonesia spread across the archipelago. And we have to answer it because when you think about Indonesia, it's such a big archipelago. The minimum wage in one could be significantly higher than the minimum wage in another island. The price of live birds in one island could be a lot higher, a lot bigger than the live bird prices in another island. It could go up to 20, 30 cents per chicken if you take a look at the different regions. So the question of where should we cut our chickens, right? Which slaughterhouse will give us the cheapest cost of goods manufactured, or COGM? How many of those chickens and in what size? Should we cut small birds, medium birds, larger birds? Because it drives the second question here. How can we minimize slow-moving inventory? And when you take a look at chickens, it's actually a living being, so it has a uniformity curve, right, for each of the different sizes. If the curve looks like this, right, we only target this one in the middle. Unfortunately, when we cut, we also create chicken sizes from the edges, right? And that's annoying because you don't know what can you do with this. There's no demand. Right? So how can you minimize slow-moving inventories? I mentioned this briefly on how to take position because we also have forecasts on what live birds is going to be in the different islands. So when is the best time for us to take position? For the commercial side, we know transparently that not all customers are profitable, but sales team will push certain customers anyways, despite them not being profitable, right? So which customers should we prioritize? The profitable ones, the important ones? So this one, it's hard to make a balanced decision because obviously all the different departments have their own priorities, right? So therefore we need something agnostic, a data-driven agnostic approach to say, okay, which customer should we prioritize for? Our demand planning sucks because a lot of the demand planning now is just moving average. We have to move on from that. There's a lot of statistical tools available in the market to generate that. We tried using Amazon, what's it called? Amazon something, in order to use a demand planning, but also that's like 60% accurate. So how can we create a more accurate demand planning process is also one of them. And which product mix? This is standard input. For manufacturing, what should we produce in the next 3 days, 1 week, 1 month ahead, given all these different considerations that we spoke about, and how many shifts or overtime should we run? So when we, our drive for this integrated value chain is to fix the most complicated business unit, which is Chioma's Slaughterhouse. Chiomas is our brand for primary processing, so that if Chiomas succeeds, we can begin rolling this out to bigger and bigger business units in the future. So this is a bit of our history on where we were when we were exploring which supply chain management system to explore. We have these 5, which we ultimately narrowed down to just 2. So Anaplan and also with Relax. And we decided to go with Relax for the sole purpose being that they're the only vendor that has experience in proteins. When we were speaking to Anaplan, they're, I think, 30 to 40% cheaper than what Relax actually quoted, right? But when we actually interviewed their consultants, they knew jack shit about poultry. And that is because it's such a complex business model that we don't want to trust it to someone who don't know. But when we interviewed Relax, there's a lot of experience that they bring with regards to poultry experiences. So yeah, you know what? Why not? We give it a gamble. If it doesn't work, it's sunk cost. But if it works, hopefully, it's going to generate a lot of wins. So that's the first reason. Number 2 reason, it's more or less plug and play, and they're very flexible against our unique requirements. The requirement to take position, for example, that's something that we haven't seen in the market. They're able to do it. So they have the flexibility to tailor against the complexity of Indonesian protein business. And this is allegedly, I actually don't know this from their ad, right? Their advertising is that they never failed an implementation. So we know that Chiomas is very difficult in order to fix. So when they say, oh, they have never failed implementation, I hope this is not the first implementation that they will fail. But it gave us some form of trust that we should give it a shot. So that's why we went with Relax in August 2024. Since August, we are now here. We have 12 slaughterhouses, but we want to prioritize 6. So 6 slaughterhouses here. We are now here around March at soft go live. So the 6 slaughterhouses are already modeled into Relax. We are running it in parallel with our manual way of planning, which we use Microsoft Solver, very rudimentary. We wanted to see, okay, if we plan Solver right now versus what is being planned in Relax, what is actually the delta in terms of the slaughterhouse, what do you call that, improvement in terms of our cost when we buy chickens, and in terms of our revenue, because we can prioritize more profitable customers. So this is where we are. Hopefully after April, we're gonna go live after the Ramadan break, and we fine tune along the way before we begin expanding it to more and more slaughterhouses across Indonesia. So cluster 1 and cluster 2, it's basically, what do you call that? Just Chiomas. So Chiomas is, again, the primary processing arm. We also have some slaughterhouses in So Good Food. So Good Food is our further processing arm. And this will be deployed in parallel with Chiomas. So in total, we're going to go live with 12 slaughterhouses, hopefully by October. Demand planning, we decided to prioritize supply planning first, which is in red, because we believe that supply chain planning is the most complex. So demand planning, I think it's relatively simpler. So we decided to go with supply planning, and then demand planning will go parallel between Chiomas and So Good Food for the processing arm. And if you compare this one, the parallel way of running with Relax, this is what we have observed for the last 3-ish weeks of running it in parallel. We are slaughtering 5% less live birds in terms of the number of birds that they propose, but 7% less live bird expenses, because live birds come in different sizes and they're all priced differently. Relax is able to leverage bigger birds so that we can take part of the excess sizes, the fringe sizes in the uniformity curve, to fulfill the requirement in the other sizes. Because Relax is able to accommodate a lot of different uniformity curves from different farms, different slaughterhouses, and therefore 7% less live bird expenses. We also see that Relax, and this is a bit, I'm a bit torn to claim this one, but actually when we take a look at our demand, say for example we have 10 million tons, for example, yeah. Relax would propose, okay, don't produce 10 million tons of forecast, only produce 9.5, right? Because 500,000 tons of your demand sucks. But that's where it's a bit hard for me to have the conversation with sales. hey, 500,000 of your demand sucks, right? And that's where it's actually 6% loss avoidance at low profitability customers. And therefore, somehow it also drives less live birds slaughtered, obviously. But for this part, we're trying to fix how can we actually have that conversation with sales to say that, hey, this is the data that is published by Relax. Relax takes into account hundreds of different constraints. Please don't sell it, and we can only supply you this much. Please prioritize it yourself. So this sort of cadence is still uncertain as we go live. This is the most challenging part that we're trying to iron out. Hopefully, in April, we're able to create a better cadence to talk this up on deprioritizing certain customers over others. And I think that's actually my slide. Hopefully, I was on time. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
This briefs what it gives the sales to the no security customer any ability to the expenses on the live bird and also the number of the live bird that you slaughter.
Exactly. This
is
is very.
all those related.
Yeah. It's very closely related, right? Because if we produce 6% less profitable customers, then we cut less, right, naturally. So the cutting less is driven by the fact that not all demand has to be fulfilled, right? So that's the conversation that you have to have with sales. Are you okay with this, right? Are you willing to trust in the system? So that's where we're balancing at the moment.
So what does it mean? Because you raise the birth anyway every day, all right? But once the demand is less than supply, you can cut the live bird.
Yeah.
For slaughtering.
Yeah. So when we take a look at this,
Okay.
why are we cutting less, right? How much of the less live bird slaughtered is because we cut less demand, or how much of it is actually because they see excess products or slow-moving inventory already in the warehouse, and therefore don't cut more. Just use whatever we have existing in terms of the excess sizes or the inventory. I think 75% of the less live birds slaughtered is driven from this. The remaining 25% we saw is from the inventory, existing slow-moving inventory that you can reprocess. We intentionally keep the reprocessing capacity low when we set up the Relax system, because reprocessing is something that Java wants to build as an additional bonus, right? Instead of building it as a capacity that you always want to fill up. I don't know if I'm making sense. So that's why 75% of less live bird slaughter is from avoiding low profitability customers, 25% from excess consumption. Yes.
This is also canceling the in terms of like market price as well, because that we know like we increase and lower bird, but it also depends on the market price.
Exactly. So Relax is not a tool to forecast live bird prices. So live bird prices is entirely taken into Java, and Java puts those live bird prices into the system in order to predict prices. So how Java prices our finished goods is that it's related to the live bird price. So let's say it's a constant 1.5, for example. If the live bird price is $1, then you sell it for $1.5. So market price of live bird forecast multiplied by a constant. So that's where this low profitability customers also come in, because we have 2-3 months of live bird price forecast. Relax simulates the price on each channel level, which has different constants, different margins, and then suggests which channel to go for. You had a question?
Yes. First of all, an amazing story. Congratulations to you and the next team who have done that. But the question is, see, especially this being a supply chain where the lead time is little longer. So how do you address the changes in the demand to the supply?
Oh, lead time is not long. It's actually very short. So our
right from your upstream to the downstream, right from breeding.
Sure. So when downstream provides forecast to upstream in order to plan for the chickens, we give it 2 months in advance. We have 3 different sizes: small, medium, large. for medium and large customers, medium or large birds, it's a lot more flexible in terms of the supply, to the extent that even if you tell them 1 or 2 days before, hey, I forecasted 1,000, I want 1,300, they're very flexible. Because chickens are easy to get fat, right? But it's hard for us to get chickens that are thin. So that's a smaller birds that's challenging. Whatever forecast we give 2 months ago for small chickens, you're almost unable to change them, right? Because they have to like harvest them early before they get too fat. So to answer your question, it's about 2 months for smaller birds, 2 or 3 days for medium and large birds. That's why. What do you call that? When we slaughter less smaller birds, it also gives a lot more stability in terms of our supply chain planning. So when I saw the curve, Relax's planning actually shifts the size to the fatter birds instead of the smaller birds.
So based on like these 3 assumptions, I think I agree on the first 2, but on the last one, just like the model is working when all the factory that you have, slaughterhouse that you have is like fully occupied, or maybe 80% of utilization. When the utilization is quite low, and the overhead cost, the feed cost that you need to pay each month is quite high. So the model of making profits is a little bit change or chipping.
Right.
It's quite difficult to kick out that 6% of the loss or whatever. Maybe it's generate like contribution margin, not the net profit, but contribute something to cover your fixed cost. How do you handle with that?
And I agree. But Jaffa's slaughterhouse utilization is very high at the moment, 90 to 95%. And I think manufacturing folks, when they hear this number, they get a bit more uncomfortable because that's way too high of a utilization, right? So whenever possible, we're able to reduce the utilization by kicking out the low profitable customers. Maybe that's actually better for utilization because you don't have to pay them overtime. You don't have to run 3 shifts. You don't have to run on Sundays, which we sometimes are doing now. So that's where it is nuanced from company to company, but for Jaffa's context, we are short supply for our capacity.
So this means in some company that now it's like need more order to come in, this model might not work.
No, keep in mind. Sorry, go ahead.
The Relax model has fixed and variable costs embedded as well. Trust the model that if, let's say, it says, oh, don't go down below this utilization, for example, or else that pulls your fixed costs too high, then your unit cost, your contribution margin gets too bad. That's also doable, right? In order to put that into the Relax manufacturing capacity constraints. So I don't know about if it's implemented in your business, but yeah, it takes into consideration all these different fixed and variable costs embedded. You have something to add on?
No, I think you pretty much said it, but I just want to emphasize the fact that if we have many of our customers, if they have a scenario where you made a big investment in some equipment, etc., and in order to make sure that becomes a profitable implementation, then we can set that as a constraint. So we can say that, hey, you need to. This is smokehouse here, that we're going to smoke our salmon, and we need to run that at full tilt. Then we can set that as a constraint. But the objective generally is to maximize profits, and hence, that's why we're looking at this and saying that, maybe not all demand is worthwhile being fulfilled.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The objective is maximize profit. So that's the thing that we said, not maximize utilization, but maximize profit. So sometimes we could reduce utilization to improve profit.
And just to add to that, so if for whatever reason that the objective to maximize profit is not the key objective, but the key objective might be to maximize my delivery service, that can also be done. But
penalties, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, correct. But maybe I should say that. But poultry is not a high margin business, so profit is key.
Which is why I keep emphasizing Relax is so expensive now. We make barely anything for our gross profit margin. Yeah, you can see in public reports. But yeah, hopefully this will improve our profitability, Chris. So.
That's the idea.
Any other questions? Yeah.
How often do you run the model? You also have a monthly planning.
We have a monthly plan for 12 months ahead, but the one that we lock is 3 months. 3 months? No, not long. So liquid is 12 months. Slushy is 3 months. Frozen is 1 month. And we run it weekly and daily for the 1 month. For the 3 months and above, because it's liquid, we run it on a monthly basis.
And I think if I may add to this as well, I think what I find most exciting is when we get further processing as part of this, because that gives us an output for any surplus, and we can balance demand and supply more efficiently, because as soon as we cook the chicken, it lasts a lot longer. So then we can freeze it and we can package it, and it gives us another lever to basically drive profitability.
The reason I asked because of this, what we found is the variation of the supply and the demand. Once we run monthly planning, weekly and daily, sometimes the supply and the demand change.
Yeah.
Then what we have done in the past, it might not get.
Yes.
So, and because the size is even the size of the chicken, the demand that's supposed to be like this, it's not like that. Once
You
it
must.
comes in there,
You must run daily. Must. So when you do implement Relax, push them to go for daily implementation, daily schedule, right? Because weekly and monthly does not work for our business.
Right.
Yeah, it's not relevant. So you have to push them to have daily plan.
one more thing is, what interests it is, you always have the surplus and the shortage every day for a certain part. Once you slaughter the chicken or slaughter the small, you are like 50 or 100 pounds coming out. Some certain part you have a shortage of 50. Some certain part you have a surplus. Some surplus we won't freeze it because it's not worth it.
Okay.
So those kind of things is the solution how we manage the daily factory.
100% agree. Thank you. You pointed out the times. I guess that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Nathan. And this is one of the examples how IBP can really start transforming your business. And as Nathan said, this is just the starting point, right? Nathan calls this pilot, we call it phase 1, because you're very confident it will not fail. And now we'll deep dive into a little bit broader topic, which is IBP in terms of industry agnostic, understanding what IBP stands as a concept, what it entails from end-to-end planning, and how it can be utilized really across different industries. And we'll also see with one of the examples in the live demo, what Nathan was talking about, how system really optimizes the profitability and how you can set different constraints to come to that conclusion. And with that, I would like to invite Krista and Letitia.
Can you hear me as is, or do I need a microphone? Is it okay? Lisa, is it okay?
Okay.
Okay, then I'm going to drop the microphone. Okay, so maybe not. So I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk a bit about, what is IBP/S1P and how does it fit, and what is the important, what we're trying to drive from that, what is it we're trying to achieve. And then I'm going to talk a bit about the technology behind it that I believe personally is absolutely vital. I think Nathan said it, in the big room in there, he said, many times to get your SNOP/IBP then to actually be effective, you need technology to drive it, which I 100% agree with. I can't understand how people can on basically PowerPoints and spreadsheets try to get that to work, because it's not going to drive any much efficiency. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the technology and what it means, and then we're going to wrap up and talk a bit about the benefits, and then we're going to have Letitia give you a bit of a quick demo so you get a sense for it, what this is all about. I'm going to run through this bit quickly because I think we're going to be short on time now. We're going to get Letitia to do a bit of a demo. Now, before we get into it, I'm just pressing them on. Okay, that's back. Is it? Yeah, okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, the first I'm going to do is we're going to put a bit of context around this. Now we're using one of your competitors. I'm sorry. Yeah. Don't take it the wrong way. They do publish a lot of good stuff though. So maybe I'll step around here. So anyway, so this is an article that McKinsey wrote about autonomous supply chain planning and the importance of it. And in this report, they found that this is in particular then in Asia and Southeast Asia, is that this is how well this autonomous supply chain planning, which is kind of the way we want to drive the S&OP cycle. Because when we get as far as we can up here, what it means is that we become a lot more reactive because we don't need to spend time in producing the plan. We don't need to spend time about collating the data, debating it. Short term, we really want to get to action. We want to get to action quickly. It drives responsiveness. So we will respond quicker to changes in demand and supply. So we'll become much more efficient when we get to that. But it's just amazing to see that still, if we take it from the very end then, that the 4% just don't have a formal S&OP cycle at all. And then you get into kind of a traditional, which is more stepwise, still kind of silos, still a fair bit too much spreadsheets, still take a bit of time to get it going. Tiger is one of our customers. When we started working with them, their S&OP cycle, it took them a month to prepare for the next monthly meeting, just because it is so difficult in the poultry industry. It is by far, the whole protein space is by far the most complex supply chain there is, because there's so many things we got to consider. So it took them a month just to get ready for the next meeting, and they had this on a monthly cycle. And it's not viable because, I think as both Konsulovac said and as Nathan said, you got to spin this so much quicker. We're talking daily, for further processing, we're talking weekly, but in general speaking, we got to move very quickly. So one of our clients, and you've got to use my phone here because I figured I could mention this. So one of our clients is Sunny Queen eggs. It's not protein, but still very complex. And we took them pretty much from having a traditional cycle, and we took them all the way here. And just to say that autonomous planning doesn't mean that we're going to turn a blind eye to what we do. It doesn't mean we're going to ignore everything. It just means that we automate as much as possible of the decision making. We still keep an eye on alerts. We still keep an eye on, are we holding too much stock? Are we missing demand? Are we not holding enough stock? What is my utilization, etc. And I think the autonomous part of it, the shorter the planning horizon is, the more automated we want it, and the further out. So if we're looking at our plan for 18 months, that's a different story. Are we going to build a new factory? Are we going to put out another farm, etc.? Then we don't want automation. Then we want scenario planning, and we want something different. But coming back to that Sunny Creek farm, and they said, after then, this was after just 2 months then. They had reduced the warehouse utilization, improved stock management, and creating a safer working environment because less hectic and less space. More efficient packing. This is an email I received from them. Because I asked them, can you specify? They didn't want to give me any values, but he told me this. Shorter setup time, ensuring smoother and efficient floor, more efficient grading process, significant reduction in planning time, of course, because now it happens automatically. And improved transport utilization, increasing from 91/94 to 98%, with a notable impact on margins. Originally started at 89, but then we're up at 98. And they had a record-breaking Christmas, so they went live in November, and they shipped more pallets than they've ever done before. And all because when you create a model that encompasses all of these constraints, business rules, etc., and you let that make your decision, you generally make smarter decisions. and you make model. So, with that said, what is SNOP? And I'm not going to go into a debate what it is then, but generally it is a process that we run, generally they run it in monthly cycles. But as I said earlier on, the more automation we have, the quicker it spins and the more we do it. But there will generally be a demand review, supply review, and I'm sure you will recognize this. I'm sure you've implemented many times. And for each of the meetings, it's about defining objectives, it's defining the inputs, the outputs, who's going to attend, the frequency, the chair, etc. So this is in essence what SNOP is all about. And then, so for each of these meetings, we have these cards, and we go through and we try to get it. The challenge thing generally is to get that information, at your fingertips, knowing what you're looking at, finding, the information you need. Where am I holding too much? Once again, are we missing any demand? Are we going to have any issue with utilization? All of these things that we really need. And then you tend to then spin it kind of on a weekly basis. Now, all trade different, then we spin it daily. But this, it's all about just finding this balance between these different aspects of it. Now, back to our good old friends at McKinsey. Next time we're going to have a Roland Berger slide. I'm really running out of time here. But so what did McKinsey say about why are we falling this so short? And of course, you have the soft side, active executive support, data integrity, accuracy, integration, technology and tools, complexity, operating in silos, lack of education, unclear KPIs, and lack of transparency. So this is, and we see this, and it just, when you run these processes, and particularly in a fast-moving industry like poultry, but it goes for pretty much all food industries, then you can't do it on Excel. It just doesn't work. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to go through 5 things that I think are essential and important that when we're looking at what a system solution will need to give you in order to drive efficiency through a proper IBP/SNOP process. Number 1, a unified end-to-end solution. So just having one solution that covers it all, because if you start operating in islands and they don't talk to each other, then you'll struggle to drive efficiency across the board. I mean, we got the slaughterhouses at Jaffa as an example, where we basically get a grip of the entire business. Then. So within Redux, we have this solution that covers it all. Anything from your procurement, from your production scheduling, from your inventory, from your distribution, it's all in there, and everything sits on one database. It's one set of rules, etc. So when we start looking at the numbers, everyone looks at the same set of numbers. So you don't need to debate and discuss and collate to get the information. It's all in there. The other thing that I think is important also is this whole vertical integration. I mentioned that briefly because when we're looking at more strategic decisions, when we're looking at that 12 to 18 month horizon, of course, the granularity of our planning will be very different than when we decide what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to be very precise. When we're looking at what we're going to do 18 months, we can be less granular and we can be kind of more of a rough cut. And the second thing is that when we get to that, it's going to be more about scenario planning, which is the second thing. So I think that scenario planning is actually what kicks in coming back again to what I mentioned earlier on. The closer we are to execution, the more automation we want. The further out we are, the more type of scenario planning where we want to test different things. We want to see, do we need another warehouse? Do we need another site? What happens if we are going into a new market? And just because we got one model and that all hangs together, and that kind of scale is from being down to minutes and seconds all the way up to monthly buckets, even quarterly buckets. We can cater for that very easily. So I don't think Atisha's going to show you this today, but it's very, very simple to create these scenarios. It's still one database, you're just tagging the changes we make. We can have as many scenarios as you want. You decide which one you want to use and you push it back and make that your actual scenario. We address all these key things when we're looking at this. The third thing is we have talked about automated and AI-driven supply chain. So coming back then to, I mean, we're using a different sets of different technologies, but we're using machine learning generally to predict, so that's, understanding, what my forecast be, about my promotions going to be, if I'm going to introduce a new product. I want to use the machine learning to detect then, what we think the future demand will be. Then we get into, I think one thing we've done also that I'm very, very happy with how we've dealt with it is that mathematical optimization is very precise. It gives you the kind of the perfect plan, regardless of we're talking production, inventory, distribution, warehousing, etc. But it can also take a bit of time, a bit slower. So what we've been able to do is we're mixing that mathematical modeling and optimization where it adds value and where we have bottlenecks, etc. But then we can use heuristics, which is super quick to deal with anything outside of that. So we can combine the two, which means that we don't end up in a scenario where you're going to sit and wait. And I mean, it might still take a bit of time to crunch the number in the optimization, but just running the heuristics, we're talking seconds rather than kind of minutes. And of course, the Gen AI, which we already have in the solution, which basically is when you interrogate the information we have in there. So we're using these as four technologies when we are looking at it. And I think, coming back to this whole thing around automation and mathematical modeling and optimization goes hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. It's just impossible. If you're going to sit and run scenarios to decide what you're going to do tomorrow, that's not going to be good. Okay, we normally talk about this just to get some, I think you probably understand what mathematical modeling is all about, but give you a super quick example here. So here we got Barry's Bakery, and they produce the two. It's bread and brownie, and for the bread we got a demand of 45. The profit is $15 a bread, and for the brownie it's $25, and then the profit is $20 per brownie. Now, the constraint we have here is that they both need flour and sugar. It's not the most healthy brownie here. You need 2 kilos of sugar, half kilos of flour for one brownie, and we need 1 kilo of flour and half a kilo of sugar for the bread. But the constraints we have here is that we only have 60 kilos of the sugar and 50 kilos of the flour. So the question is then, how many breads should we make and how many brownies should we make? And it's just a super simple example to illustrate the power of using mathematical modeling to express this. And so I do this, and we take the most basic version of optimization, which is linear programming. Then if we express this, what we want to do is we want to maximize this. So we want to find what X bread is and what X brownie is. And for each X of bread, I multiply that by the profit, which is $15. For each brownie, I multiply that by the profit of the brownie, which is $20. So we want to find the X bread and the X brownie that maximizes that value. But doing so, we need to consider the fact that we only have 50 kilos of flour and 60 kilos of sugar. My demand is 25 and 45. So if I plot this and I take the first consideration, which is just looking at the flour, I can see I can make 100 brownies or I can make 50 bread. But I also need sugar, so looking at just sugar, I can make 25 of the brownie or 120 bread. But since I need both, the solution is kind of in that little kind of box in that corner. If I then add the constraints being that we only can sell 25 and 45, that's my solution space. I run a few iterations and we'll come up with the optimal solution being, there it is. The 20 brownies and 40 beds, which gives a profit of over $1,000. So, the poultry industry, it's not about cookies and brownies. I mean, and there's so many constraints. We've got to consider, as we talked about, the weight of the bird, the distribution curve of the bird, the production capacity, the demand, the surplus. It is very tricky. The next one I want to just mention here is comprehensive and grand digital twin. Because what we are doing with this model is we create this digital twin. So we make a representation of the supply chain, the end-to-end inside the tool. And I think that for this to be effective and for this to really work, you really need to be grand. We need to be able to address, because every single industry will be a bit unique. And I think if you're talking specifically about the poultry or the protein industry, it has its challenges. Tank planning, as soon as we get into beverages, is a very challenging topic. Expiring and aging. But if I just look at it, there's a whole range of things that you got to consider. And I think Nathan was alluding to that. That the tool is very, very flexible. It is a bit of a plug and play. So we can address all of these things and we can do it effectively. Okay, the last thing, which is then governance and cross-functional collaboration. So I just took one slide about this, and it's one thing, and I'm sure you can. Those who try to implement SNOP will probably agree with this. It's one thing you sit there with your PowerPoint and the process, and you make it look nice, and everyone agrees. And you got to make sure it happens. You got to make sure that people are doing what they were told to do, and that we are following up. And in order for that, we need to create kind of a governance blanket to throw over it, so that we can monitor and we can keep track of the fact that people are doing what they said they were going to do and what we agreed we were going to do. And this is just kind of a view that talks about how we can have these standard activities that we can create, and so on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, we spin them off and we get someone to address them. There'll be a due date that there's someone responsible for it, and we can then track how we are progressing. We have the different steps and statuses, and it's just kind of a dashboard that we can use then to control and monitor how well we are progressing through the cycle, which is pretty important, because I know that otherwise people, and in particular the sponsor, they do other things and disappear. Okay, I think we need to get Letitia up here, but I'm not going to go through this. But if you get this right, if you get your IBP and your SNLP right, and you get it connected and you get it, the benefits in there are significant. And going back to my good old friend Ari Saha from Tiger, I think who is supply chain director at Tiger, and this, which is a protein. I said, give me the top three that you feel as being the biggest value, and they are big on the further processing. So he said that the managing of surplus, because understanding what the surplus is going to be means I can find a better home for it, which means I can increase my overall margin, which means I can reduce what we call margin erosion. The second thing is line utilization, basically produce more with the same equipment. And the third thing he mentioned was give me control over this chaos. Those are the three things he listed. Okay, I think with that, we have just one more slide before Letitia. Whenever you're ready, Letitia, I can talk about this. We have, as Nathan said, we have a lot of experience in the protein industry. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to hand it over to you now about this slide. And we have a lot of experience in food in general. Okay, we need to unplug this too. Are you ready to go? Okay, yeah. Oh, you said, okay, perfect, okay. Do you need that? Yeah.
No, that's.
How do you do it?
Kind of thing that we have seen.
Right.
And then the other challenge are probably, I won't say it as a challenge, it's a frequent thing that they encounter is more like some kind of a marketing and promotion. Say for example, there could be a buy this and take some extra 25 grams free. So if that is the case, then there will be a need for modeling the alternate material. And it happens so frequently. It will be for maybe the Ramadan break or a Christmas break, whatever is that. And again, it goes back to the conventional thing. So again, both these things need to be in the system, and your demand signal should reflect both these. So how you model that? So these are all some of the things which I have seen with the CPG or the food and beverage.
right? And expanding onto that, so we discuss IBP, and in IBP process, other than supply chain, one key stakeholder is CFO. And we do happen to have CFO from a food company. So from your perspective, when you are in SNOP and IBP meetings on monthly, weekly basis with your colleagues, your managing director, so what's the important thing from your perspective?
I think maybe probably in terms of the data, because that like as like you mentioned, right? Most of them they also have the data, but how we have like the same data on the same page, right? When we discuss and when we make a decision, right? I think this is quite very challenge here.
Understand. And so Kun, right? So you're also running SNOP process at Thailand, right? So listening to Vijay and the CFO, what's your experience has been so far, and what are the challenges you see personally? Not able to move from the left-hand side, which is shown more traditional, to more autonomous side of IBP or SNOP.
For me, right now it's about the linkage on different platforms. Since Thai Union has like many business units, many factories, like I think it's like to integrate across the factory to have the same understanding on the utilization, the same goal on making profit and how to allocate the product is quite challenging. Because in the traditional way of SNOP, we keep debating between each administration. This product should come to us, this product should come to you, because we are getting the margin, and we need to find a way or something that can be, the bar for everyone to follow, not necessarily choose the most profitable one for their factory. I think this is to make decisions.
And then totally align on that, and not do that, you may need to have several scenarios, right? Like in your SNOP and IBP meetings, okay, if this is very important for you, what's going to be the impact, specifically on the annual profitability? And that's what we're going to see now, like how running different scenarios can take us into different proposition in terms of KPIs, and how that can enable us better decision making. Back to you, Latisha.
So I was saying in the model that we built, basically the manufacturer can buy birds and they come in different sizes and weight, and it impacts the purchasing price that can be different depending on the region. And so basically the challenge is to match these birds to the customer demand and decide how to cut them. So as mentioned by Nathan earlier, there are many ways of cutting the chicken. And so basically some cuts will produce more leftovers than the others. Basically if you have a lot of wings demand and not enough of thigh demand, then you will end up with surplus. And so basically the tool will have to decide how to cut those chicken in the most profitable way. So we want to maximize the value and minimize the waste. There is another set of challenges where we have to consider production costs. So those are different depending on the location. It costs less when you are raising a bird and cutting it in Central Java compared to South Sumatra, where it would be more expensive. So at some point you have to decide whether it could be more profitable to produce everything in Central Java and just ship it to South Sumatra, because you can move around the frozen goods. So the system again will have to recommend that, considering the demand and the supply available per region, and also the production cost, the distribution cost, and also your resource capacity. And if we want to add another layer of challenge to this case, we have to think about the day-to-day operations. So the planners actually on the day-to-day have to reconcile demand and supply. Demand and supply never perfectly match, so there are days where you have surplus. You have to decide whether you want to keep it, to freeze it, or maybe it's more profitable to just sell it with heavily discount. Or you have days where you have shortages, and in that case, how do you fulfill customer orders? Do you prioritize based on margin, price, or do you have customers that you want to prioritize? So the system will help you to do that, knowing that in this fresh industry, you can receive order today and you have to deliver tomorrow. So those decisions have to be taken really fast. Today, how companies are doing it, so most of them still rely on spreadsheets, honestly gut feeling. Some of them have more advanced algorithms, right, that can take into account already a certain set of variables, but it's not really achieving true optimization. So there are still inefficiencies, more costs, and sometimes missed opportunities that happen there. So in the demo, I'm going to show you, how our platform that is enhanced by optimization can help you make those decisions in a more smarter way and take faster decisions. So basically, instead of just spending time doing manual adjustments, the vision is that you will have that plan already optimized, already generated based on all the constraints that you have, and the planner can run scenarios. So for example, you can run scenario where you don't have any constraint and you want to understand how many birds do you really need, and so that you can take this information, work with the upstream business unit, for example, and then you can add on to that different constraints. What if you have this number of birds already produced? How can you push it to the market? On top of that, you have production capacity issues. So where do you have to do that? Another set of scenarios is, for example, playing with price and customer priorities. So if, for example, you want to give some discount to a certain customer, or is it because you want to push the surplus, you can directly see what's the impact on your profitability. If you have a customer that has low margin, but you want to, strengthen the collaboration and make this customer as a priority, what will be the impact on your profitability? And then you have another set of scenarios that you can do, capacity planning scenario, where instead of doing overtime, do you want to open an extra shift? Or if you want to even take more strategic decisions, is it worth creating or building a new plant? And if so, where? So this is the kind of decision you can take with this solution. So this is a dashboard that we use in our model, so to understand what's happening, understand what's the impact of each decision that you make whenever you run scenarios. So you have this first panel here that is actually financial metrics. So in this one, you can see how much revenue is met, not met, the breakdown of the cost in terms of distribution, production, purchasing, inventory, and ultimately your bottom line and your profit margin percentage. You can see different columns here because whenever you are changing a variable, changing, for example, the priority of a customer, you can run another scenario and you can compare what's the difference, what has changed, why your profitability has increased or decreased. Then we have another set of KPI to, for example, understand what's your service level. Then we have added into that dashboard some information about the supply, so how much bird do you have per location, in size and weight, what is set in terms of surplus and shortages that you will have to push to the market, and ultimately an overview of your capacity, production capacity. So now I'm going to jump into the platform. So basically that's the same dashboard that I've just explained right now. Okay, I hope everyone can see. So that basically is the same, and I'm going to explain a little bit more here. So basically I've run that scenario with the model I've just explained with unconstrained. So there is no constraint. So you can buy unlimited amount of birds, and you have as much production capacity as you want. So that's why you can see here in Central Java, where it's the cheapest to produce, the load is actually higher than the capacity. So that's how you can quickly visualize that. One thing that you can see here is that although the scenario is unconstrained, my delivery service is not 100%. So the system has chosen not to fulfill these 3 customer orders because it thinks that if you produce one more bird because of minimum batch and so on, you're going to actually be less profitable than if you just keep it as it is. So what I can do here is to say that actually supermarkets in Borneo are now a priority. I cannot miss that demand, and so in that sense, I can use priority to fine-tune the model decision. So I can go to planning parameters where I have a set of variables that I can play with. So here I have, for example, the priority of the customer. I can look at supermarket Borneo and increase the priority for that customer. And so I'm just going to update the model, but as you can see here, you can also play with the uniformity curve of the different farms. You can maintain the efficiency of your production line because that will define it will have an impact on my production cost. And I could also play, for example, here with the distribution links. Do I allow transfer from Java to Borneo and vice versa? So those are the kind of variables, and it's not exhaustive. It's just an example. So if I go back,
Excuse me.
yes.
You said that you can play around. You can play around in the uniformity curve. Where is on that?
Sorry?
Where is on it? Where we can.
Here. So basically, these information are parameters that you can change directly here. Actually, the truth is that that curve could be, changing depending on the period of the year, right? But here it's just to simplify how we are visualizing this
I
information.
understand.
But this table could be changed by the planner.
So this like the percent like
Yeah, this is the different categories.
79% right there.
Yes,
Okay.
88% in Borneo is
The distribution.
yeah.
Basically for
Yes. So in the background, we will choose to rerun the optimization. So don't be afraid. There's just here like few scenarios that we pre-built, like the unconstrained one, the one we constrain with the number of birds and so on. So I'm just going to rerun it unconstrained really quickly. And so if I go back here and refresh my dashboard, I can have a look here and I will see that my delivery service has increased because now I only have 2 customer orders not being fulfilled. But as you can see, my bottom line, so my profitability has decreased.
any penalty applying on this was surplus and the shortage.
Yes, there is. So you can put penalties, or you also have the inventory cost. So if the inventory cost is increasing, then your profitability will
Inventory
decrease.
cost is one of the penalty.
Yeah, it could be.
There's also other penalties that you can put if, let's say, okay, if you don't fulfill this customer, the penalty is more. Maybe you can add all these penalties yourself depending on your business model.
Yeah, so basically that's why you have different priority, and depending on the priority, the higher the penalty. So that's.
For us, surplus, we also apply the penalty,
You can.
but once we have a surplus, we cannot service.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
You can put penalty on your surplus, you can put penalty on your inventory.
Okay. So yeah, that was one of the scenario. Now, what I'm going to do is just to run the optimization by adding one more constraint, which will be to have limited birds means that the birds are there, it's going to be pushed to the market, and at the same time you have to take into account your production constraint. So again, I can just rerun it here. One thing I should mention about this optimizer is that we mentioned that different business could have different type of constraints, and how easy it could be to add it or fine-tune the model. So it's not like we are going to rebuild it from scratch. Actually, most of the constraints are already embedded into our platform. So as you can see, for demand, we have like a set of constraints that have not been activated but could be for your business. And the same for each area of the supply chain, distribution, production. A lot of constraints here could be activated, deactivated according to your business and the scenario you want to run. So now I've rerun the optimization and I'm going to update the screen. So as you can see here, you can see that the bird supply mix has changed. So if you remember, or maybe you don't, but initially the product mix was recommending a lot of medium birds, so the orange part, because basically in terms of cost and yield, that was the best balance. But now we have more large birds that needs to be pushed to the market. And as you can see here, my load is now, according to my production capacity. So Central Java is almost, fully loaded. So the delivery service is lower, and so here you can see that the revenue net is lower, but interestingly, the bottom line is higher because the optimizer will still try to maximize the profitability, reduce the cost, and so we choose to prioritize those orders that are more profitable.
Let me ask you something. For the first one, for Central Java, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's telling you that the supply that you have is for the, large is that portion,
Yes.
medium is that portion, right? And the small one is a
Small.
topic, right? So that's the supply that you have.
Yes.
Would it tell you that, for example, you got 100,000 a day? Maybe it might be economic to slaughter like only 95,000 more. And the rest, you can sell it as a light work. Those can be one of the choices that we can make. It doesn't mean that we have to slaughter 100,000 birds.
So
It might be economic to slaughter just only 95.
Yeah, so
And we sell it as a
similarly,
light work.
so similarly to the number of cuts that you have to choose from, it could be one of the options to just sell it as a live bird, right? So it could be one of the options if you set it up like this.
I'm not sure whether in Indonesia you got things like what we call killer. Killer is you slaughter it, you remove all the internal organ in this way. And after that, they serve it like a machine. In Thailand, we call it chicken rice, that they add the killer, things like that. So rather than we got a choice to sell it, put it to the slaughter, to slaughter it, make it become a pot, and the chicken pot. Second thing is we call killer. Killer is the chicken rice, remove all the
Just the carcass.
yeah, it's a carcass and cut the feet and the head. And the last one is we can make a choice to sell it
Yes.
as a live product.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. We hope that the model would help to justify,
Yes.
even based on this certain demand together with the price, what would be the best fit based on the supply that we have and even cost that we have. Now when we run, we use the contribution margin to justify. But based on the constraint that we have in terms of the minimum and the maximum constraint, demand constraint, the supply constraint, capacity constraint.
Yeah, so that's something I think we could definitely do, as long as you have the costs, related to each option. And the system will holistically take into account the whole constraint. So unfortunately, there is no more time, so we cannot run too much scenario. But I hope that it shows you how the platform can help you to make those data-driven decisions in a more smarter way. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Latisha, and now we are coming to the end of today's event. One more thing is left, which is networking session after this. But just to wrap up, I think we started the day at a very high note, listening to PwC, the challenges that exist, but that also brings us opportunity. And then last 1.5 hours we spent listening to Nathan, great story, and also Kristen and Latisha to see how we can take next steps to really bring technology into the organizations. I think one thing, if we can take from this session for everyone, can be just to take 10 minutes when we go out of this event, try to think about this, and also think what is the next step we can do for our own organizations. With that, I would like to thank everyone, and also our sponsor Infosys for supporting us on this, and would like to invite everyone for networking event. We are all here. I think one of the benefits of these sort of events is to network, talk to each other. Your peers are here, consulting companies are here, learning from each other, picking each other's brain for insights, and that's what makes these events really, really successful. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.